Hello, lovely people. Welcome back to Speak Your Truth. I'm your host, NCV, also known as Nia. And after 2 months of being in a transitional period and in isolation, I have found my way back. And I have so much that I would love to share with you all. But first, I need to take a sip of this nice cold water. And I do have my bougie glass straw with me today, okay? So I have something that I wrote that I think will be the perfect bridge into what I want to talk about today. So let's start with that. Go towards fear. You know, when fear comes up in my inner world, I always lean into it to fully understand why I feel the way I do. With painting, I used to fear it because it felt so permanent. Seeing who I am, I like to be free, and permanent sounds like a cage. However, avoiding something doesn't allow freedom. It causes entrapment. You won't know what's on the other side until you try. As a kid, I loved sketching. But ask me to paint and you'd see me turn away in an instant. Like this is such a real life story. Because every time I had the opportunity, even in art classes, I said nope. Now as an adult, I innately face the fear. I have been painting to find flow and to not think. Instead, I have found that I am learning to become flow. Nothing is permanent when you paint. Rather, it is layered. The piece wouldn't be what it is without all parts of it, forever evolving and changing, a reflection of self. Each painting is a moment in time of pure expression, a depiction of memories, transmutation, and the depths of the am. I found freedom in painting for self-expression, and flow found me. I learned to ground self by becoming flow. So, in the 2 months that I have not been tending to this podcast, sadly, I'm sorry, but I also have learned so much. There's so many thoughts flowing in my mind right now, but that period of time was such a transitional period of time in my life, and I was starting to receive my manifestations and my blessings from God, and I didn't know that it was going to be so difficult to accept the blessings at first, which is so strange when you're calling in something that you want so badly and it's coming in for you, but then you're like, it's actually like it's like fear kind of coming in to see, like, it's like almost a test when you're receiving a blessing. You're tested and with fear once more to see if you're going to overcome it. So I, was going through this transitional phase in my life. I feel like I'm always changing. Like things in my life is always moving, and like I just can't anticipate how things will go. And it's really because I've been on that journey of trusting the unknown, and it's been the most beautiful journey. Even the parts that people would consider ugly have made it so beautiful. It's made it what it's supposed to be. So yeah, I haven't been recording for the podcast, obviously. I have lacked the motivation with recording for the podcast, but I had conversations that I wanted to talk about. However, I realized that if I had sat down to talk about this experience at the beginning of May, there were certain experiences within May I wouldn't have had in order to see it fully through. So this is why I always listen to where God is calling me, where my soul is calling me, and what direction I am led down. And listening to my intuition is important when it comes to sharing these messages, and that's why I really take the time that I do. And it's also to take time for self. I also just felt like I needed to disconnect from everything and everyone. Like, I even took a little bit of time to just not to just like deactivate my social media and just not be on it and not be wondering or being influenced by others, so that I could just have my own energy for myself, you know. As someone who's an empath, and I very much so can feel when people are pulling on my energy, I just felt like, for some reason, social media felt like a portal to me, and it felt like people were just pulling on my energy, and I just needed to be with myself. And that felt so good. I had the most empowering time when I disconnected completely from socials. It was great. But what I will say is this: what I've learned during that isolation is how to express myself in other ways without vocalizing. And maybe I've been dealing with blocked chakra. I don't know. I feel like that's part of it, though. Blocked throat chakra is what I meant to say. A blocked throat chakra. See how it's just I can't speak? It's probably also like we were just in Mercury retrograde, but I'm struggling. So because I have been struggling with being able to do this and vocalize and being in front of the camera, I've been finding other ways to self-express, and one of those ways was painting, like I just was reading about, and it's been so beautiful. It's been so lovely to paint and to discover another artistry that I can enjoy. And the reason why I enjoy painting so much is because I don't have to worry about perfectionism. I could hone into my perfectionism and make things how I want to, and sometimes I do that, but it's like in a different realm where I'm not planning as much. I'm just going. I'm flowing. I'm literally becoming flow with paint. I'm becoming one with that flow, and like it is so freeing. It feels so good. And it's so beautiful, like the process where I think it's gonna go one way, right? I have this vision as to how my painting's gonna look, and then it looks nothing like I imagined. And it's such a great replica of what trusting the unknown looks like, and having and putting full faith in God looks like. It's such a beautiful metaphor for that, because I have another story that I really need to share on a separate episode, but I've really put my trust into God, and my faith is so strong. Like my self-doubt can't waver me, like nothing can. Like the devil is mad. The devil is mad right now, cuz nothing can affect that. Like there's just, I can't even find the words. There's just protection around me. But painting has allowed me to sift through my emotions in a different way, and like, you know, to see that metaphor of trusting the unknown. God has made so many miracles in this part of my life happen, and I'm so grateful. And with painting, it's like another one of those things where it's like I have this expectation, but then when I become the flow, I exceed my expectations. It's the same thing where I'm like, God, I want this, and God's like, no, I'm gonna give you this, and it's 100 times better than I could have ever imagined. And I'm just so grateful for that part. Anyways, being in isolation for those last 2 months, I wasn't in like, probably more so like June into July, I was in a more like really by myself a lot more. I mean, most of the times I am by myself, but during that time when I took that step away from social media too, and I was just also at first like trying to use it in moderation, but then I found myself too distracted and like scrolling like crazy, so I was like, nah, I just gotta cut it out. So I cut it completely out, and painting was just so beautiful for me. And that time alone spent with my own company was just so beautiful for me, because I just got to enjoy myself. I just got to be in the moment and choose the present moment with myself. And, you know, it was like one of those things where I had to like tap back into my inner child again. My inner child is very prevalent, right, in this part of my life, clearly. And I think in every phase of my life, the inner child will be very important. Look at this little moth. Anyway, sorry. I just found that with painting, it also exposed the fact that, you know, there's a lot of type of artistry that I liked that didn't require vocalization, like photography or even videography, right? These are things that do not require vocalizing. And I've come to understand how that ties into my inner child and the fact that, you know, I didn't have the space to express openly and to take up space unapologetically. It felt like if I was taking up space, I was taking away from others rather than adding to the room. So there was a lot of different ways I was silenced. And so certain art forms make me understand why I create the way that I do, or why I'm being pulled in that specific direction, which is really interesting. But also while being in this isolation, I, you know, looked even more in depth into my inner child. And, you know, I really was just like, I got answers that I was not looking for. Excuse me. Let me drink some water. I got answers that I was not looking for. And all of what I'm about to say is going to sound so heavy. And it is heavy, but the way that I process things now is very different. Because during my phase of isolation as well, it's like I needed that time to contemplate everything. And to contemplate now with where I am in my mindset and how I choose to use my mind, it is a very healthy space. It is not a detrimental space for me to be in my mind when I need to be in my mind, right? And it goes further than just my mind, because it's also about, you know, my third eye and, you know, connecting completely with my soul. I found a lot more information than I was looking for when it came to my inner child. I really wasn't searching for it. It came to me. God was like, here, look at this. I was like, oh, okay, cool. And instead of just looking at my inner child, I started to be able to look at my lineage through my inner child. The woundings from my inner child was reflecting the lineage that I'm from. You know, it made me go, okay, if my inner child hurts the way that she does, and I understand that my parents, I've already said it before, it felt like I was parenting my parents. My parents are pulling on my nurturing energy to be there for them. It made me understand that, you know, they were actually looking for their inner child to be nurtured because they didn't know how to do it. And that's why I ended up parenting my parents. And I guess it makes it easier to process in a sense, but it doesn't, because it makes it heavier, because then you start to understand that when you're healing these wounds, you are truly healing it, not just for yourself, but for your lineage, for your ancestors. Like, it's more than just us. It's more than that. And I understood that it even goes back further than just my parents, right? Like, if I'm looking at my grandparents and how they parented my parents, it gives me better understanding as well. Having all this understanding doesn't mean that I accept less than either. It just makes it more digestible. And it actually just made me, especially with my mom, I'm thinking about her inner child, it makes me so sad. It makes me so sad. Like, your inner child needs such a big hug. And it's just like a understanding, it's an understanding that the heaviness I felt, and the reason why I kept asking God as a young child or young teen as to like why I felt the way I felt, is because I felt the energy that my parents carried, that my grandparents carried, that my grandparents' grandparents carried. Like, it is just that heavy. Because I feel so much lighter. Understanding this allowed me to feel so much lighter. To be like, oh, not, oh, I can now accept toxic behavior. No, I'm not accepting that. I understand discernment and boundaries, I have compassion for you and your inner child. And I thought I had compassion before, but I understand that I have true compassion because I felt the weight and the heaviness of what you were carrying, and I had begun carrying it for you. And that's a lot. So to release it also feels like the greatest weight off my shoulders. But the perspective is just nice to have, because it makes me understand what my parents are reflecting back to me at that point. Because I know what I reflect back to them, I reflect them back to them. But to understand what they reflect back to me is to look at how interconnected our inner children are, and the fact that they just didn't heal themselves. And all I wanted to do as a child was nurture them and save them and help them and heal them. And the problem with that is that I was looking to save everyone but myself. That's where the I'm looking for external validation starts to occur, and the people pleasing starts to occur, because you think that's where you should place your self-worth, and that's not where you place your self-worth. And that's why my inner child couldn't measure her self-worth, because she just kept giving and giving and giving, and nothing was given to her. Nothing was poured back into her. She couldn't even pour back into herself. The people who were supposed to teach her how to pour into herself didn't know how to pour into themselves. Their inner child wasn't poured into. They couldn't pour into my inner child to teach me those things, to teach me self-love. And no, I don't believe that God brought me this enlightenment to try to have me do like outreach with my family of any sort. I just believe that it was highlighted so that I could understand my own inner child more and understand the interconnectedness through it all, and understand the reflection of it all. And it also had me understand the idea of projections and where that stems from, and why people project the way that they do. And that might have to just be a whole separate episode on its own, because there's a lot I can say about that. But we're all reflections of each other, and to be able to see the reflection rather than get defensive about it is what is most important, because these connections with other people, whether they're familial or not, and they're like relational, romantic, whatever, the connections in your life are there to tell you something about yourself. It is to serve as data about yourself. So during these 2 months, I've had triggering interactions with family, and I needed it, which is great, because like I really do, I stay away from I stay away in my bubble from the toxic energies. Like I really do. I really do it for self-protection. Isolation, I've also learned, is my self-protection, and I'll get into that in a moment. But I had myself in triggering situations, and it was actually so beautiful to see how I handled those situations. And from being in those situations, I learned that I can handle myself well and keep my nervous system regulated in those circumstances. It's actually, though, the part with the aftercare that I learned I needed to make sure I was more hands-on and really on top of when it comes to triggering situations, making sure that I'm tending to myself and not allowing the energy of others to become one with me or to linger upon me, because I've learned to separate my energy from others, but sometimes it feels residual. And so it's all about grounding myself after being in a circumstance like that. And that was something I needed to see. As much as I didn't want to be around my family, there were certain things going on that I had to, or at least I felt like I had to, be around them. And man, it was a triggering time. And I actually think, to be honest, I think that people in my family think I'm like lonely because of the fact that I pull myself away, because my family, coming from an unhealed family, they don't understand boundaries. They don't respect boundaries because they can't understand boundaries, because they don't even have their own boundaries. And there's also just a lot of projections and not a lot of accountability. They're all things that I cannot put myself in a position to be around, because it doesn't reflect my truest self, and it doesn't reflect my values and my standards and how I operate with others. So yeah, it was good for me to be able to be in the triggering situations, see how I respond to them. And I got to see that I can respond calmly and in a way where I think before I speak, while still using my voice for powerful reasons. But I had to have that experience to understand and understand that I need to ground myself after. And I learned that, and that was nice. That was needed. But I also feel like these triggering interactions as well happened so that I can see things for what they are once again, and I can reconfirm or reaffirm that I am okay with distance, and I am okay with releasing certain connections and energies that do not serve any purpose in my path, in my life. And I have to do that for my peace of mind. And that's where I feel like I've been led, and I'm at a point of acceptance with it. And it's been like that for a few years now, and it doesn't bother me. It doesn't. And it's really interesting because this is I feel like I'm on a very lonely part of my journey, but even that, like I just spoke about spending time with myself and like getting to know myself on a different level. I feel so good about that. So it's like, yes, the journey can be lonely. Yes, I crave that, you know, intimacy and interactions with others where it can be deep, but being deep with myself is also a blessing in itself, is also something miraculous in itself, is something to be cherished and admired, you know? I don't like that bug. I didn't like it. I didn't like that. So yes, the journey is lonely, but I enjoy my lonesome times at the same time. Like, I really I understand. I keep wanting to say understand, but I understand it. I really understand that I love my solitude. It brings me freedom to have my solitude. That's so freeing. That's so freeing. Especially because for a long point in my life, I felt like my solitude was stripped away from me in so many different aspects. Previous relationship, it was stripped away from me. My familial connections, it felt like it was stripped away from me in certain ways where it's like if I can't create distance without it being a problem and people being defensive and thinking it's about them because they're projecting, that's a problem. Especially if I communicate it. And I'm a fairly great communicator. So the message sometimes is just not received. But I love my solitude. I really do. And that's like the most beautiful part of it all is that I'm just recognizing something different in myself where it's like I don't fear being lonely because that fear is not real. And I understand that, you know, I've talked about it on the podcast before of just like, you know, having a long time, a part of my journey or a long part of my journey where it's just like I've felt so alone and no one was pouring into me, and it's because I wasn't pouring into myself, right? But at this point of my journey, like being alone isn't a burden. And it doesn't make me feel like I need to cling on to the idea of attachment and keeping people closer that don't need to be kept close. Like keeping people close for the idea or to just take up space. Like I don't know how to describe it other than that way. Keeping people close so that I don't feel lonely, but in turn still feeling lonely. Like, no, I only have room in my life for people who can see me for who I am, like truly see the depths of who I am and accept it and love it. Because I love these parts of myself so deeply that I understand. I just see my value. I just see my value. And I feel as though if someone is not willing to treat me in the ways that I deserve to be treated, then I have to remove myself, because that's part of not abandoning self. That's part of, you know, who I am now, where it's like I no longer abandon myself to not feel lonely. Because what's the point of doing that? You know? There is no point. Because you end up being lonely regardless when you do that. Especially if it's a toxic connection, it's just, it'll never be worth it, you know? So I've understood the lonely journey and why my journey looks the way that it does, why it is so lonely. And a lot of that is because I've also learned that I tend to be a catalyst for people. I tend to be a mirror for people. Sometimes a catalyst for their growth. Other times people turn away and they don't choose growth. And if you are someone who's experienced that, then you know how difficult it is, especially as an empath. Everybody thinks that empaths who can detach, it's so easy for them. It is not easy at all. It's not easy one bit to detach from people who you love so much, even when it's family, and you expect those to be the closest connections to you and to hold the most weight. It's not easy, but it is a choice. And the way I've had to detach will not be the way that you may need to detach. You may not need to full on cut a connection completely off. You may just need boundaries. However, there are certain familial connections in my life that I've learned that I just have to completely cut off, and my absence in their life is the catalyst for them. And the hope is that either they will look at themselves and make those changes, or they may not, and that's no longer something that is my responsibility. I am not holding the responsibility of other people's growth on my back anymore. And it's something that I think people are starting to recognize as well, because I'm very quick to showcase my boundaries and be like, nope, I don't want to have this conversation, or whatever it may be, or nope, I don't want to, I'm vocalizing those things and being straightforward in order to protect myself and to ensure that I have enough in my cup, filled in my cup, poured into my cup. I've poured into my cup before I've poured into someone else's cup, you know? And so with that, it makes me see how people don't like when you change like this, because they don't get the same access to you anymore. And sometimes they're not able to fully comprehend why you're moving the way that you are moving, and they also project onto you and make their own narratives and either make you the villain in the story, or they start self-victimizing. And that's also not for me to decipher, you know? I feel like I'm very straightforward and clear, and others' perception of me is not my responsibility to carry. So these past 2 months of isolation have just further validated myself in a more inward way, allows me to see my lineage in a deeper way, and has, connected me more with my inner child, and allowing me to get to know myself even more as a multidisciplinary I butchered that, and allow me to get to know myself as a multidisciplinary artist. I've just realized I'm not a multimedia artist. I'm a multidisciplinary artist. And I look at everything I create at this stage of my life, and I'm like, I think that everything that I create is so beautiful. I think that everything that I create is so from the soul. It's so amazing to see my potential And I say that because a lot of times I'm someone who lives in their mind and can foster these ideas but never bring them to life. So when I bring a creative idea to life, my heart is so filled. And I make my higher self and myself in the now so proud. It's a feeling I never had for myself before. So to be able to have that for myself now, I know my inner, that fills and feeds my inner child, because I never really felt like I fully understood that for myself. Other people could say that they were proud of me, but to feel that for yourself, oh my goodness, it is miraculous. It's miraculous. It feels godly. It feels heaven sent. It feels like God is applauding you. It feels like God is celebrating you. That's how it feels. When you feel proud of yourself, that's how it feels, because that is what it is. That is you feeling God's love for self, like for yourself, if that makes sense. That is you being able to foster unconditional love. When you can love yourself whole and love all sides of yourself, you are able to carry unconditional love and to reflect that back to other people so that they can feel what that feels like. And they may feel it from you, but they will have to learn how to feel it for themselves and fill themselves with that unconditional loving energy, to then truly see what it feels like to love themselves and feel proud of themselves, right? And God has taught me that in various ways. God has taught me that. And ego can never take over and tell me that my idea of what my plan for life is will be the best plan, because it never will be. It will always be God's plan, because I've learned that God has the most grandiose plans, and God has brought me so many blessings and in the craziest ways. And like I said, I have a story for y'all that is very dear to my heart, but I would like to share it soon. Right now, I'm just in a phase and a point of this part of my journey where I'm just releasing a lot, and I'm so stable within myself, and I trust God's journey, God's path for me, God's plan for me, that I have nothing that I feel I need to worry about. Nothing. I am here in the now. I have absolutely nothing to worry about. And that's pure freedom. Wow. I almost want to cry. I definitely want to cry, because I'm just reflecting on my blessings. But we're not gonna do that here. I love me some tears of gratitude so much. God knows how grateful I am. And I am so grateful to be able to come back and share. And, I'm still in this transitional period of my life, and things are still changing for me. Everything, people, places, things, everything, connections in my life, it's all changing for me, but it doesn't sadden me. It doesn't bring me sorrow. It just reminds me of my strength, and it reminds me of what alignment means, It reminds me of my own worth as well, and choosing that, and what it feels like to choose self. I don't ever want to lose myself ever again. Not in the ways that I lost myself. There are ways that I could fathom losing myself to find myself again, or regenerate a new version of self. But I wouldn't and couldn't lose myself in the ways that I lost myself from 2021 to 2024. No, I couldn't lose myself like that again because I'm so deserving. And I love myself so much. And I say that in the most humble way. But I found that love because I found God's love. Like, truly found it and felt it, you know? And all these things with my inner child coming up just made me realize this idea of wanting to be chosen. And the fact of the matter is that I don't need anyone outside of me to choose me because I'm already chosen. Because God chose me. I choose me. You should choose you. When you feel God's love and you really internalize that, right? You understand it so much that you can see other people's woundings and you can see how they behave off of those woundings, but they're not their true authentic self. And you get to see, once you release your own woundings, you get to be your true authentic self. And it's how you set yourself free. It's literally how you set yourself free. By accepting yourself, loving yourself. Because understanding yourself and not worrying about oh my goodness, is this person going to understand me? Are they going to see me? Worrying about those things is not, it's literally you losing focus. Where once you understand these things about yourself and you see yourself, you don't need anybody else to do that. Yes, it does feel nice to have that. And yes, we are all deserving of that. But to expect it from every person, from every connection, is detrimental. Because then that means you're looking for it everywhere outside of yourself and not feeding yourself that energy. That energy of feeling seen, that energy of feeling chosen, that energy of feeling valued, that energy of feeling deserving. Like, that needs to come from within. It has to foster from within so that you know how it feels to receive it from yourself, so that you can understand, like truly feel it for what it is, so that when it is to be given to you externally from someone else, you know how it should feel for you. How good you make yourself feel is how good someone else should make you feel, essentially, is what I'm trying to say. But in the sense of, like, maybe that wasn't the right way to say that, but how good you make yourself feel is like the bar of how you would want someone else to treat you. The way I love myself is how I would prefer and would want someone to love me, because I love myself in totality, and I would want someone to see me in totality and love me in those terms and see me through that lens. Okay. All of that to say, to sit here and to want to be chosen is a humanistic thing. But when you feel what it is like to be chosen by yourself, when you choose yourself, it's so different. It's so beautiful. It's so freeing. It's so loving. It's so joyous, and it's just a beautiful feeling. Like I can't, the human language can't help me put it into the perfect words. But I hope that you all can look within and find any of the answers that you are looking for and any of the love that you're looking for. I hope that you find it from within. And I hope that the love that you give is the love that you receive. I hope that you receive reciprocated love. And please choose yourself in every circumstance. There's a balance and a duality to everything. So to be selfish for self is just as important as being selfless for others. And yeah, I love you all, and trust me, I have so much more to share. I'm still trying to regain this balance. This is like the third time of me being like, it's like such a pattern of me being like gone and going into isolation, and I'm trying to not do that as often. But sometimes I really need it. I really need that one-on-one time for myself, and I know that it's a self-protection thing, and it's like my comfort zone, but I'm also doing work behind the scenes, and I'm still creating, and I need the time because it allows me to gain the wisdom I need to so that I can come back and spread some type of wisdom and knowledge to you all in hopes that it can help you along your journey. And again, like, our journeys will never look the same, but if any part of my journey can help someone else, then that is why I am meant to share my own story. And I just want to spread love and light. And I thank you all for supporting me, and thank you for listening. And there's so much more to come. I love all you beautiful souls, and I hope you have a great morning, day, or night. Bye, guys. I love y'all.